Have you ever been sat in an exam the day after you've made mind maps, the day after you've made notes, and all you can think of is the colour of the page? You know exactly where the piece of information you need at this very second is written, but you cannot see the piece of information itself. You've put all this time and you've worked and you've studied, but for the life of you, you can't remember the answer to the question. If that has ever been you, this video is here to save the day. We're never taught how to learn. Forget just exams and school grades. Learning in itself is a fundamental part of a fruitful life. And in school, you're never taught how to do it. You're just expected to pick it up as you go. In all honesty, the vast majority of us never do. The common message people seem to have when they are already successful in a field that you're trying to learn is stick at it and work hard. But working hard at a method that doesn't work. So in this video, I'm going to run through 8 evidence-based study tips and change the way you study for the better. The first thing to get clear is this: rereading your notes, reading a textbook, passively watching an explanation video, all of them, when they're done by themselves, are completely useless. They quite simply do not work. And I remember the first time I heard this. Ali Abdul made a video about this, and I remember being blown away when I heard that for the first time. He references this study that is in the description below, and that study highlights exactly how diabolically inefficient those study methods are. If you use those study methods now and don't pair them with anything else, don't stress. In fact, I'd say breathe a sigh of relief, because studying is about to get 10 times easier for you. First thing on the agenda, because we are building from the ground up, is ground rules. Part 1. 4 ground rules. Rule 1. Understanding is king. Whenever you learn anything, understanding the why is so much more important than remembering facts. There's no point knowing that fluorine is the most electronegative atom if you don't know why fluorine is the most electronegative atom. To learn, we must understand first. Rule 2. Time block and prioritize. Parkinson's law is a real thing. It says words to the effect of, the work you have will fill the time you give it. If you sit there and allocate 2 hours for a task, it'll take 2 hours. If you set 1 hour, you are much more likely to get the same task done in the 1 hour time slot. Time blocking is simply allocating certain tasks, blocks in a calendar. It doesn't matter what calendar it's on, it's just making sure that you allocate time for each task and don't leave the deadline open-ended. You've got to prioritize the things you're the worst at. If you had an exam tomorrow, which topic would you pick to revise? That is the one you've got to do, no matter how far away the exam is. The third ground rule we're going to lay down is take breaks. No matter what the genius students say, they all take breaks. And MIT suggests 50 minutes of work, 10-minute break. That is the most intense university in the world suggesting that. A lot of people that I know, and myself personally, live by the Pomodoro technique. This is simply 25 minutes of studying and a 5-minute break. Similar to what MIT are proposing, just split in half. Number 4, the most important ground rule of them all. Take care of yourself. Too often in a world of 5 a.m. wake up and 12 a.m. finishes on TikTok, we assume a solid 8 hours of sleep, a fitness routine and a good diet is not akin to doing well. It's quite the opposite. Anyone successful in any domain all take care of themselves. They sleep enough, they eat enough, and they exercise frequently. Your mental health and your physical health take priority over everything in this world. That is always, no matter where you are in life, the number 1 priority. Okay, now the ground rules have been laid down, it's time to look at how to study. We're going to run through 4 techniques, 4 things you can apply right now and change the way you comprehend and remember information. For all of this to make sense, we need to start with the human forgetting curve. Part 1, the human forgetting curve. When you learn something for the first time, for about 10 minutes, it's absolutely fresh in your mind. But as time goes on, you very quickly forget that piece of information. If we plot a graph of knowledge of a given subject on the y-axis and time on the x-axis, you get a curve that looks like this. However, if you review a piece of information when you're about here on the forgetting curve, your knowledge level jumps right back up to the pinnacle. What is amazing is that after coming back up here to the peak for the second time, the curve is less steep. You bring it back up a third time, the curve's even less steep. The more times you remember something, the slower you forget it. Understanding this is great. It's how the brain works, but how can we beat it? It should be obvious. We're going to remind ourselves of information at these points on the curve. So how are we going to do it? Part 2 and 3, spaced repetition and active recall. To counteract the human forgetting curve, we need to deploy a spaced repetition revision method. As the name implies, this is the principle of taking gaps between reviewing the same piece of content. As we get further along the forgetting curve, the gaps increase. Keeping track of these gaps yourself is impossible, especially in a world where we need to remember so many things about so many different subjects. Thankfully, there is a masterful solution, an app called Anki. It's open source, it's free, and it is literally just digital flashcards. There is a question on the front, an answer on the back, the answer being the piece of information you need to remember. The flashcard aspect is active recall. More on that in a minute, but the spaced repetition comes in here. You answer the flashcard and you get to rate the difficulty on a 4-point scale. The easier you found it, the bigger the gap becomes. The algorithm remembers how you rated the card last time and increases the intervals perfectly in line with the human forgetting curve as you find the card easier. If you find things easy, they get put months and months into the future. There are going to be a few settings that you should probably tweak to make Anki the most effective it can be for you, but that warrants a video by itself. For now, all I'm aiming to do is show you that it exists, tell you to download it, and start using it on its default settings. Parts 2 and 3 are combined because active recall is so complementary to this. It's the opposite of passively reading. When I dismissed those methods at the start, you may have noticed they were all passive methods of study. There's no thinking involved. You can do it with the TV on in the background, and that's why they're so ineffective. With a flashcard, you have to think about the answer. You have to make the connection in your brain, and it's scientifically proven to be exponentially more effective than just passively reading notes. The other bit of active recall you should do is past paper exams. Obviously, for things like maths, memory isn't everything. Practicing the techniques is. Actively recalling these methods puts it into your brain so much more than just watching an explanation. Be careful though. I'm not saying that textbooks and YouTube videos don't have a place to be useful. They do, just not by themselves. You can't call it a day once you've watched a video. You use them to understand, and then you do the active bit of the revision, whether it's a past paper, making a flashcard deck and then answering it. You understand what I'm saying. Part 4. Listen to Dr. Richard Feynman. Feynman was an author, a teacher, most notably though, a physicist. This bloke dumbed down quantum particle interactions to literal squiggly lines on a page, and it made perfect sense. He was a massive advocate for the fact that if you can explain something with an analogy like a Feynman diagram, which is the squiggly lines to represent particle interactions, you understand something better than the next person that requires fancy terminology and hundreds of words to do the same thing. He was also a massive advocate of speaking out loud, teaching your wall, teaching your whiteboard, whatever it may be. The second you can't explain something, you know that there's a gap in your knowledge. You probably feel like an idiot the first time you do it, but it highlights the gaps in your knowledge better than anything else in the world. I didn't want to waffle too much. This video is very heavily scripted, but I still feel that I should sum it up in the next minute or so. What you're doing right now probably isn't the most effective way to learn. But before moving on to how to study, it's important that we lay down some ground rules. The first one was understanding is king. We've all tried brute force memorization. It doesn't work. We should also time block and prioritize. Use Google Calendar and be specific about when you're going to do things. Third, we should always take breaks. 5 minutes every 25 minutes is good. 10 minutes every 50 minutes is also good. An often overlooked rule of thumb is take care of yourself physically and mentally. We then understood the human forgetting curve. We learned how you really quickly forget pieces of information after you've learned them. To counter this, we must review the information at given intervals. These intervals are best decided by a spaced repetition active recall app called Anki. The active recall part is because you have to think about the thing you're trying to learn. Another part of active recall that you should incorporate is answering exam questions frequently. Final thing we spoke about was listening to Richard Feynman. He was a huge advocate for speaking out loud, explaining things to your wall, your whiteboard. The second you stutter, you found a gap in your knowledge, and you can go back and learn the piece you missed. Good luck, and thank you for watching.